for being here. We have the creators and cast of TNT's Legends new series. We have executive producer Howard Gordon, showrunner David Wilcox, actor Sean Bean, actor Morris Chestnut, and actress Ali Larter. Thank you all for joining us today. Obviously, Howard, the busiest man in television, it seems, right now. Very impressed how you can execute all of these series so well. I'm curious, when and through what channels did the idea to adapt Robert Luttrell's book, Legends, come to you, and what was that development process like on your end?
It was a very long process, but it was one that it started actually the same time as Homeland did, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, same. The book came to me through Fox, and it was just a great idea. When I heard it, I wanted it. I wanted to do it, and we developed it for NBC originally. And so it was developed with a number of writers over, actually, and then we developed it once and then twice. I won't bore you because it's a long story that's only interesting to me because I lived it. But long and short of it is I developed it twice for NBC. And when they passed on it for the second time, Michael Wright and Brett Weitz were waiting in the wings, and Lila McCarthy at TNT, and it was right. It was just again right place, right time, right script, and they picked it up right away.
Okay. And at what point, David, were you attached to the project?
I came in pretty late. I came in about. I think I sat down with you probably about 8 weeks before production started.
Wow.
And
the show has definitely been like has had its bumps and its ruts.
Like any great drama. Come on.
You know, I'll tell you something. There were some really interesting behind-the-scenes dramas some of which we can't entirely talk about now, but we're very happy to be here right now.
And in the sort of hiccups along the way, aside from normal development stuff, I mean, what were was it the content that was difficult to adapt? Was it finding the right producers, finding the right talent?
Well, I'll speak, and then you can too. But yes, the answer is it is a challenging concept. You take something where a guy who has this existential identity crisis, who doesn't know who he is, and it conjures brain wipes and brainwashes, stuff that, for argument's sake, can be very cheesy, and I think could go one way or the other.
Sure.
Even undercover, it could be a guy with a Stetson and a tall stack of chips with So
right.
We really wanted to go deeper, wanted to make this thing much more psychological, and I think David, took. What we think as a pilot we're all very proud of, and ran with the ball, I think, in a really, really interesting way.
Well, there was, when we met the first time, it was about, how to conceptualize this show. Is it driven by character or case? Well, we said we wanted more of a character-driven show. Was it, how were we going to use this sort of undercover concept of legends, and how to do it in a way that was credible both to the drama, where you need, a fair amount of running room to get someone who's going undercover into a case. How would we do that? And as well, what did these legends look like?
Right.
And out of some fairly brief discussions and kind of hitting the ground running, we sort of reconceived things along with our co-EP Josh Pate, kind of reconceived things and just started writing as fast as we could.
Sit back and watch. It's his show now.
Move and I'll blow your teeth out. The legend is an elaborate lie. It's a character.
You are a man of many faces.
I want the truth about my past.
I know we're taking a risk in reactivating him, but I'm more concerned about the risk if we don't.
I want you to listen to me very carefully. There will be an attack.
Keep moving!
Why do I get the feeling that you don't want me digging into this?
What's he gonna do when he finds out I've been lying?
There was no Martin Orton. Everything about him was fake.
Sometimes a good soldier has to fall for a good cause.
I think that he's gone rogue. The whole thing's been scrubbed.
Suspect's name? Martin Orton.
To see the character, in his covert operation. We're able to see him out of it. So you actually hit all the right notes, and then you feel like there's enough ahead where you feel like, oh, I actually do understand where this character is going, but I'm intrigued. So that's actually very difficult to do in 1 hour.
It's like cholesterol, good confusion, and there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. I always tell today, there's good confusion and bad confusion.
Well, and you've done a great job in Homeland doing that too. There's confusion breeds interest over time.
Right.
You know?
Until it doesn't, and that's the question.
Well, that's why we have cable. That's why we have cable, right?
That's right.
And obviously key to this enterprise was landing a great cast, which you clearly have. Center of this ensemble, of course, Sean, who we all know and love from that one show that he departed from a few years ago. And I'm curious, Sean, after Game of Thrones, how did you know what to do next? And that must have been a very tall order to maintain that excellence, but also challenge yourself. And how did you know that this was the right show for you?
I think I first realised when I spoke to Howard on the phone, and I was in London, and Howard rang me from over here. I was kind of, very excited, and the concept that Howard explained what it was about, and the idea of playing kind of multiple characters, taking on different identities, and creating kind of these legends or characters was very exciting. And Howard was obviously, his track record and his excellent material that he produces, and his passion was kind of infectious, and and his enthusiasm, and it seemed like a fantastic idea. It was something I really kind of relished and wanted to get my teeth into, and you don't get those opportunities very often. Certainly not playing a very good character, a very well written character in Martin Odom, but not only playing him, but playing other characters on top of that. So it was something that was
right. There's no chance to get bored with one character.
No, not at all. No chance to get bored anyway.
Nor an accent too. You have your wide variety of accents in the show. It's very, very impressive. And the first character we meet, I don't want to give away too much for people who haven't seen the show, is an American, and your accent's excellent. And I'm wondering how much practice does that take to nail that? Because and he's a particular type of guy. He's not he has a different affect. Sure. How did you immerse yourself in that?
I kind of voice coach, and I can't do accents, but I can't kind of. Some people can just kind of slip into them, do them very quickly and easily. I kind of have to work at it for a bit and do my homework, and listen and then read it back and listen again, and it's a harder accent than people think. People think, I do the American accent, but it's not like that. It's really not.
Brits always say it's
very
easy.
deceiving.
I don't know. It's hard for me to know.
It's deceptive. It really is, and to get it right, and to get it, so that people believe you. That especially coming from England and working with Americans, an American set and the crew, and you kind of bit self-conscious at first, but you've got to just throw caution to the wind and go for it. But
that's when the wonderful styling, the jacket, and the glasses sort of brings the whole thing together.
And, I guess it's a psyche style for the guy, and you think, where is he going? And I guess everything else kind of follows, hopefully.
Yeah, well, it definitely works. Very convincing.
Thank you.
And the rest of the cast, not everyone's here, obviously, but the two of you, great in your roles as Crystal and Tony. Morris, I'd recently seen you on Nurse Jackie, right. in which you were excellent, and this is quite a departure.
Yes.
A little bit more serious. Tell me what attracted you to this script.
Well, the Nurse Jackie character was very serious.
He was serious in a sea of less serious people.
Exactly. This, I wanted to do a show on TNT. I'm a big fan of the shows, and so I slept there for 3 days in the lobby. I protested.
That works well.
I protested. I wasn't eating and everything, so they gave me a meeting, and then and so they said, we have this show. You might want to consider. It's the pilot's already done. It's on the air, and it said Howard Gordon. I was like, Howard Gordon? Yeah, the show. So I said, I went into a room, top secret, had to sign away my life and everything to watch it. And I loved it. I loved the show. I loved Sean on the show. I loved Allie on the show. It was a great concept, great characters. And I'm paying them about $300 a week to be on the show.
Sure, right. I saw those envelopes actually right off set.
You weren't supposed to show that, David. That's messed up.
I know.
And Allie, obviously, so many fans know you from Heroes, and this is a very different role, similarly action-packed. But what brought you back to TV, and specifically this script?
I think one of the things that really attracted me from the original call that we had was that the kernel of the show, what they were always coming back to was, who am I? And thinking about people's shadow sides and all the different faces that we have to wear every day. And starting to explore that. In my own life, I'm a mom, I'm home, I'm cooking, I have all that. But it's one side of me. And when I get to come in and play Crystal McGuire, she's someone who's chosen not to have children. She's not married. She sacrificed really having emotional commitments in her life. And so for me, that's something that I love being able to go to work and explore that because it's so different from my everyday life.
And you do it very well.
Thank you.
Howard, we've talked previously about all the research and all the, insidery knowledge you've gained making 24 and Homeland. And I'm wondering now, when you approach folks on the inside of the government's, deepest annals of secret keepers, are they open to you sort of infiltrating that, or are they kind of afraid now because they know what a Howard Gordon show can potentially kind of expose about
you'd be
those
surprised.
teams?
People love to tell their stories. I mean, it's not always on the record, but they like to always they like to tell their stories.
At least on background, you're able to hear a lot.
And I pay much less attention to that than you might imagine. I mean, I'm much more interested in the emotional integrity of the characters, and I kind of think the details. We do some pretty absurd things, but if the characters are doing what they would do and saying what they would say, then I think the rest, sort of follows. So I'm a lot lazier than you might imagine in terms of research.
I find that totally hard to believe, but okay, we'll go with it.
In your line of work, you've killed people. Do you feel remorse?
What was Operation Raining Fire?
Answer the question.
I'm gonna put a bullet in their head. When agents come out of Legend, they often indicate signs of extreme stress.
He's gonna figure it out.
How far are you willing to go for the cause?
He's not gonna stop.
Tell me the truth, damn it! Your life is a lie.
You're not getting out of here. Not alive.
For the rest of you, when you were researching these types of jobs and the people who have these jobs, were there any anecdotes or stories you heard that totally shocked you about what these people do for a living? Because it is a slice of government life I actually really didn't know of. The term legend I hadn't heard in that way of being a separate identity. Were there any things you came across either reading or researching that really surprised you or shocked you?
For me, it was a lot of the legwork. I worked with an agent and his partner was a female. And that was, for me, really interesting about how she was in, a power position and how she dealt with men in different situations, especially when you have to lead men, because it's a very fine line of being able to be in control and take the lead and not coming across as bitchy or unlikable. And so that was something that was interesting for me to kind of talk about. Also, just when you look at the size of your hands, you can't hold a Glock the same way as a man can, so you just have to practice more. And that's really what it came down to. And with a show like this, if it doesn't look real, then you're not gonna be on that journey. And it's our job, and I take that seriously, that when you're watching it, you're gonna believe this, and you're gonna believe that we're in these situations.
Right, and that each character is acting in accordance with whoever their real life counterpart is.
Absolutely.
And I love that the cast is very diverse too. Women, men, white people, non-white people. It actually feels like a really real work environment, which I think, David, you probably, sound like you're a stickler for details. You wanted, even background artists, you wanted it to feel very authentic.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that we always talk about is how can we find sort of the kind of the grounded element of the show. So even though you're talking about sort of a group within the FBI that's very much sort of tip of the spear and so secret, in fact, that they're technically not even supposed to really exist. For me, the details and finding, the authenticity of that really was in characters, themselves, as opposed to the procedure and things like that. It's which I don't think is all that interesting anyway. It's more about, because of the fact that this is kind of a world that we've never seen before, and we're kind of opening up into that world. It actually gives us an opportunity to almost define the reality of what these people do and how they do it. And when it's psychologically and emotionally honest, then I think we're on solid ground. So it's less about how do they say perp or Vic or any of that sort of stuff. Like, that stuff doesn't matter. It's more about what these characters are going through when they step into these roles, when they have to sort of cross that line and they have to go over to the dark side to do their job, and what kind of toll does that take on them.
And I'm curious too that the show's procedural in one sense but not in another sense, and how are you, from the writing perspective and acting, how are you kind of creating a balance where if you're tuning in for the first time, you don't have to know maybe, oh gosh, what's the backstory, but you are invested then, especially with your character, knowing like where is this man's identity crisis leading him. From a writing perspective and acting, how are you kind of maintaining those two, keeping it procedural but also keeping it kind of a longer arc?
I mean, the thing we always say, this is a show that's driven by character, not case. The cases are what keep the momentum going.
Right.
But ultimately, what the show is about, it has strong themes of identity, of trust and duplicity, and these were the sorts of themes that I think exist strongly in kind of the character stories that we're telling. As far as procedurals and procedure goes, we're all so familiar, I think, with kind of what those stories are and how those stories work, that you can actually, I think, sort of shortcut a lot of that. We don't need to see 4 scenes to get from A to B.
Right.
They're sort of clever shortcuts that are believable, that don't feel like total cheats, and then that way we can focus on the reaction of the characters and the sort of their emotional state and what's happening to them in a broader sense.
I would say too, there is an arc for the year in a way, which is that this team is like a family, and that they're coming together in different ways. I mean, he's trying to find out who he is. He's hunting him for a murder. She and he are adversarial. So it's a little bit like the Wizard of Oz, a little bit, where everybody is coming together toward prosecuting this mystery of who's behind, who's the Wizard of Oz, who's Martin Odom. But it is a family, and the chemistry, again, this is one of those things where the casting gods were shining down on us, because you see them work together, and you see them together, and aside from being, a not unattractive cast, there is that thing that you cannot calculate, you just can't know until it happens, and that's chemistry.
Yeah, it feels real.
Yeah.
And the episodes that people might be seeing in the next month or so, were there any scenes or days or sequences that maybe took a lot longer than you thought, or took a while to learn? Or
I would imagine the first season of any show is kind of difficult, because everyone's getting to know each other, and and feeling that chemistry and feeling comfortable with each other, and just being comfortable with the scripts and everything that's known. That's the hard part for us as an actor on a television show, is you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
I mean, I went from an Hervé Leger dress and 4-inch heels to a hazmat suit in one day. So try that on for size.
Hey, that's great.
But you were going in and out of character someday with different accents. I mean,
how are you prepping for that between scenes?
I was coming in as one person and going out as another. I guess I was, and maybe one character in between. But that was good. I had great fun with it. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And, working from David's material was a real real joy.
First rule of undercover: make the lie as close as possible to the truth.
You don't even know who you are half the time.
Your life is a lie. Don't trust anyone.
With all of you, we sat down and we talked about your characters as much as trajectories in terms of, okay, this is where you're starting, this is the direction where we're going. We would sit down and we'd talk about who Dante, the Dante Auerbach legend, or the Len Barlow legend, and sort of who they were, and Sebastian Egan, and sort of building these characters from I mean, from Sean, and then building them up from there. And
it was exciting. I mean, there was an urgency. I mean, to it, which was kind of give it an energy, a very positive energy. I thought.
Definitely.
Sometimes you have things flying at you from everywhere, but I mean, we never got bored. We were always kind of focused on the ball, and it kind of helped in a way.
I know, exactly. Great. So next season we're going to get our scripts the night before.
We were under the gun a little bit, and but to their credit, we would throw some pretty heavy stuff at them with not as much notice as maybe you'd have on a HBO show or something. But
now that you've launched so many successful dramas and the market is so crowded in the best way, but also it means that there's so much competition. At the inception of every project, what now is the biggest challenge? Is it money? Is it finding the right home for the show? Is it the casting? Which part for you is the most difficult?
You mentioned there are so many moving parts in a show like this, and or any show, and that it only takes one of those parts to go wrong for everything to go wrong. And so it has to be this accretion of really, hopefully, good judgment, good luck, being at the right place at the right time. Again, I think we were the beneficiary. I think we have, the wind at our backs now with a network that really is embracing us. As I said, the casting guys were shining down on us. We were lucky to get Dave. I mean, and then ultimately you're up in the hands of something that you cannot tell until the audience, which really judges. So I think you just got to get lucky, and you have to be smart, and you have to hold fast to that thing, to your judgment. I mean, the one thing I've learned doing this for as long as I've been doing it is that, try to compress the time between your instinct that this is going to work, this person is wrong for this part, maybe notwithstanding all the voices who tell you, no, this guy's good for that, you should do that, and when that part of you says no, stand up and don't let it happen, or. And then again, but it's crazy how much television and how much good television is on. Yeah. So it's a tough environment.
Good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. Yeah.
And making the episodes, what kind of notes and feedback were you getting from the network? What was that relationship like from your perspective?
I mean, it was outstanding. They very frank with us when they needed to be, but amazingly supportive.
I guess we'll have to wait until you're into like 3 seasons for you to have grievances and stuff. They have to build up over time.
That's right.
You're still in the honeymoon phase right now.
Sure.
And for the actors, obviously you have different directors for each episode. But how has the creative process for you been on this show versus other projects?
I guess it's different in the sense that you've got perhaps 10 episodes in which to tell a very good story, or a number of stories, and that was quite a luxury. I mean, I know there was this kind of taboo between film and television a few years ago, and I'm really pleased that that's gone away because.
Well, you guys are all working in TV now.
Yeah, and it's such good quality, and as you were saying earlier, and if you come to our set, it was like, we had 3 cameras, it looked like a James Bond set some of the time, and it was excellent, And,
you wouldn't know you were on a TV show.
No, except that you've got a lot longer to tell a story and to build up a character, and that's what I found very interesting. And certainly when, I've got multiple characters, you can't do that in 2 hours or 3 hours, It's, like I said, that is a real sense of urgency. But it kind of works, and, I look back on it now, and it's very difficult to remember the kind of first few scenes that we did. I don't know if you remember it. It seems like a bit of a blur, but I can't wait to see it played back. But they were fantastic, these guys, and I mean that. You really were.
And how did the show, or how has the show tested you creatively in ways that maybe it's different from previous jobs?
It actually was one of the things I really did enjoy about doing the show, because when you do a film, you're on set for 16 hours or whatever. You'll shoot a shot, and then just to do the turnaround, you're waiting 3 hours.
Right.
I love the pace of television, because you have to get in, get the shot, and turn it around and then move on. So by the time they do Sean's, I do coverage for Sean. Then when it comes around to me on film, it's like I'm already out of the moment. Here it's like they do Sean's coverage, you go away for 10 minutes, and now it's my coverage, and I'm still in the moment. So I actually love that aspect of it.
I guess I kind of think of my job now as an actor is not just, the writers are doing the story and they have to keep it all woven together and make sure it all tracks. is to make sure there's always the emotional underbelly to these characters, and to call and be like, it's been a minute, we need to show where she's breaking. Or, because what's interesting to me is not watching this strong woman on her game, when it's all working. I want to see what happens after a mistake is, and how do you release that? Is it through, going out and drinking? Do you taking a man down? What do you do to release the pressure that these people are under? So it was just always making sure of trying to find those moments, and that you do have different directors, and there's not always time, and there's always such a complex story to tell. How do you constantly fight to make sure that your character has nuances and that you can see where they crack? And where you can get that peek into the vulnerable side, just like for a second, And
I'm always curious to ask actors, has the way you learn your lines changed over the years? Because the demands of this job are so different from other jobs you've had and other roles. What is your strategy, and especially if you're getting scripts, not with a ton of time for preparation?
No, I think you have to say on this show, we didn't have nearly enough time to write ahead as far as we would have liked. So very quickly, production caught up with us, and then as well, we're dealing with a complex mythology story as well, and then obviously balancing where these characters are emotionally and what they're going through and everything. I mean, that's the thing that you guys gave me so much trust, and I mean, vice versa.
With a mystery like this, the questions are inevitably kind of more interesting than the answers, and so you have to be careful to make the answers thoughtful and leave room to expand, but also not frustrate the audience.
And sort of do enough of that along the way too.
Exactly, drop breadcrumbs but also there are things I think we probably didn't get to that we thought we might get to this year, because you only have so much runway, and you have to sort of prioritize. But we just counsel people to have patience that these things that we said we were going to do, we will do.
Well, the only thing scarier than season 1 is season 2, right?
And after that, the only thing scarier is season 3. And then ending is hard. Ending well is is almost harder than beginning something.
Well, we have 18 seasons before that.
That's right. Yeah. I actually I'm getting renewed for 18 seasons. Yes, I just got that. And one last question. Obviously, the show is about split identities, and I would love to know if each of you could live a day as a different legend. Who would it be, and what would you be doing with that time?
I'd be the Howard Gordon legend.
I would be a farmer. And off the grid.
Off the grid.
Wow. No cell service.
Yeah, I like that too.
Wow.
That's the person. With a really good wine cellar.
I need a less kiss-assy legend. Hold on a second. It's really kiss your ass on that one.
How about you, Sean?
I guess I'm similar to Howard in a sense. I like to think I'd be a kind of maybe in a small a wildlife reserve.
Okay.
Come to my farm.
Stuff like that. Yeah, maybe I will, and we'll make a big.
You can open a restaurant. You can't come.
What are you talking about? It's my farm.
How about you guys?
I don't know, maybe a basketball player.
Okay. That's good. That's good. That sounds like a lot of hard work to me, but okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It's fun work.
I was thinking like Jane Goodall. I like the idea of going off the grid too, and just being able to live a less complicated life that's just more instinctual.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, if I see any of these characters written into the series, you know who to thank. So
yeah.
Well, thank you all for your time and braving these big climbs, as it were. And best of luck with the series. I think it's going to be a big fan favorite.
Thank you.
If you get the nerds, you're set.
Yeah.
That's fingers crossed for the nerds.
There are a lot of lightsabers on the show, so it shouldn't be any problem.
Well, thank you all very much, and please go get into a cool room somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.